Welcome. It's Fate back with another one of these beginner tips videos. A lot of people are still a bit confused on how to do trade extractions and also how to create lithographs. Also some little nuance on how to price them properly. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going over how to trade extract. We're going to be going over how to create a lithograph and of course how to somewhat price them accordingly to what the market is. Without further ado, let's get right into it. How do you trait extract items? Well, before we get into that, let's cover some quick restrictions to this. You cannot trait extract, or for that matter, turn an item into a lithograph if you have upgraded it. For example, I have this +9 helmet here that I've also upgraded its traits on, and I have this staff that I haven't done anything to. This helmet I can't do anything with. I can't trait extract and I can't turn it into a lithograph. The most I can do with this is either vendor it for some solent, I can dissolve it for some materials, or I can feed this into another +0 helmet to increase its level. What do you need to trait extract? Well, the first thing you'll need is trait extraction stones. They're going to be these reddish orange stones. You can buy them from a few vendors. You can acquire them from opening mystic orbs and mystic portals. You can get them various ways, but this is what you'll need to do a trait extraction, and that's the only resource you'll need. Depending on the rarity of the item, green, blue, and purple will vary how many of these stones it requires. There are two ways to get to the trait extraction window. The first one is if you left click an item, it'll kind of lock in this view of the item. And if you come down to this little up arrow right here and you click on that, that'll trait extract that specific item. And then it'll have the extraction right here and how many of those stones it costs. The second way of doing it is at the bottom right here, you have these 4 options. This one, again, is that same up arrow icon. If we click on it, it'll open up an empty window. And what you can do is you can left click as many items as you want to trait extract if you want to do them in a large grouping, and then all of them be listed in here with the total cost of extraction stones. So let's go ahead and extract this item. It's going to cost me 25 stones and 75,000 solent. And when I've done that, we can go over to materials, and there we go. You'll know that it's a trait that's been extracted and not the full item because it has this silver border around the item right here. So how do you know if a trait is worth selling? Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. One of the ways is you find the item. Let's say you just looted this bangle right here, this bracelet, ancient Suradoma bracers, right? And it rolled weak and resist. What you can do is you can left click that item, and then you can come down to the shield with a magnifying glass. You can left click that and it'll give you all of the traits that that item can possibly roll. So you would find the one that you were looking for. So I believe it was weak and resist, and you'll click this little scale icon, and that will open up the auction house with those filters already set for you to look for accessory traits we can resist for that item. Well, not that item, but all actual bracelets. Now, for the Suradoma ones, it's 29 lucent is the cheapest one. So with your price cutting, you're probably going to be looking at about 28, 27 lucent to sell that. Now, this will depend on your own preference on what your breakpoint is. If you don't want to sell anything, if it's not worth it for you to sell anything below 20, then don't. I know there are some people selling traits as low as 10 lucent. That's really up to you if you think that those trait extraction stones are, that cheap, because you do have to use them. So you have to factor that in. So keep that in mind and just set a price for yourself. A lot of times people don't really go for these crappier traits, even if like, oh, hey, 27 lucid, why not? Well, no one's really going to buy this. No one's going to buy weaken resistance. Honestly, it's kind of a crappy trait. Now, what you want to look for, so we'll go to that item again. Now, there are some big traits out in the game, such as debuff duration, skill damage resistance, and then like on the weapons, you do have crit hit chance, heavy attack chance, things like that. And we'll use heavy attack chance here. We'll go on that. As you can see, 149 is the cheapest for any of the weapons. And then you can look for your exact weapon and then see what it is for that exact one. But generally, you kind of want to price it for the lowest of all of them. So that's how you can look up what the cost of a particular trait is for a particular category of gear, weapons, headpieces, chest pieces, etc. And you can set your own price point on what's the lowest you're willing to go for. So how do you make lithographs? Lithographs will be very similar to trait extracting in the sense that it's really just a button in your inventory, which is going to be this first one. It kind of looks like a map. When you click on it, it'll be the same thing as your trait extraction. All the items you can do it to are lit up. So you left click that item and then it'll tell you that's the lithograph you're going to get. And this is the cost to do it. You need a precious blank lithograph of, in this case, accessory. Every category of gear, so weapons, armor, and accessories will require their own specific blank lithograph. So this is a bracer, it's going to require an accessory. Now, how do you craft these? You go to Stoneguard Castle, and there's going to be a section where all the purple crafters and vendors are, and each one of those will have their own. So the accessory vendor, you have right there, you have the weapon vendor, and then you have the armor vendor. Each one will be able to craft that. So for that one, we need the blank accessory one. So let's go ahead and talk to her. And it's going to be under this accessory material, looks like a bag, and it's going to be right there, precious blank lithograph accessories. It will tell you what you need to craft it. You do need a couple of enchanted ink, which you can acquire through your ornate shop or through the contract coin vendor, and a couple of other rare materials, so keep that in mind. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and I'll explain why you may not want to here in a second. Okay, so this item. Now, you saw all the crafting materials it took to make that blank lithograph. It was a lot of materials. Some of them are pretty valuable. So what you want to do is you actually want to go and check the market for the specific lithograph you're trying to make. So for this one, Ancient Sardoma Bracers. So we'll go to the auction house. I'll erase the filters we had in there. Go down to miscellaneous. And we'll type in bracers to filter it, and here we go. So Ancient Sardoma Bracers. The lithograph for these goes for 185 lucent. Now, the cost of those materials is far greater than 185 lucent. And the way you can kind of calculate this really is by some of the gems that are used for it. So we'll talk to this vendor again, and we'll scroll down to that. And right here, it takes the precious emerald. And what we can do is we can go back to the auction. We can go to sell, and I have some precious emerald right here. And these are going for 9.2 each. That means for the 10 we need for that page, plus the other materials, is going to cost us nearly 100 lucent in just materials, right? That's how much that's going to cost. Now, that's just on that one material. We have other ones to factor in. So that means our profit would be 85 lucent. Like, not bad. Well, you got to factor in again the tax rate. So you're going to lose 22% on that as well. Also, you got to consider Well, could I have used that blank lithograph page on maybe a better item that I could have lithographed? Because if you look at some of these, 850 lucent, so some of these are almost 8,000 lucent. So you don't want to just make lithographs willy-nilly on any item that you think you can. There's no point. This game doesn't explain lithographs very well, and it seems like a system where it's just like a recipe to craft yourself a thing, and that's unfortunately inaccurate. The lithograph system is a selling tool. It's used for you to sell the recipe to somebody else, and that somebody else buys it and makes it. It's not a tool for you to make yourself and then craft it yourself again. You can try and do that to fetch for maybe great successes so that we can sell the full item instead of a lithograph, or to reroll maybe traits, even though that's probably the worst way you can possibly do it, but you can do it. So it's a bit of a confusing misconception with some new players. They think that, oh, I need to make a lithograph because I want to make this blue item. Well, in reality, you would have needed to have that blue item to begin with to make the lithograph, So I know it's a little bit confusing. So if any of you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them as best I can. But this is kind of how the lithograph system works. Just keep in mind the materials you're putting in has to, kind of be well under what the profit is you're making. And don't forget to factor in the tax rate. There we go. Now you should know how to extract traits and how to make lithographs. That was a bit longer than I intended it to be, but there is a bit of nuance, especially when you are trying to sell and pricing things. The comparison I always like to make is if you're going to a bake sale and you're selling cookies, you don't want to buy $40 in materials and then sell the cookies at like 2-3 cents a piece. You're losing money. So that's kind of how I think about it. There will be a part 2 to this video on how to actually sell things, so look forward to that. And as always, if you have any feedback for me on the content or on the way I present it, please leave it in the comments. And if you did enjoy the video, go ahead and leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As always, this was Fate, and I'll see you guys on the next one.